Emergency alert. Warning, this is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. Citizens of the world, lock all doors, close all of your blinds, do not go near any windows, do not look outside, do not leave your house, stay in a room with no windows, gather what supplies you can, turn all of the lights off, do not open the door for anything. When I first heard it, it didn't even sound real. It sounded fake, like something in a horror movie. But it was an emergency, so I decided I probably should do what they tell me. I grabbed a flashlight, pillow, my phone, charger, food, and basic other stuff to keep me entertained while this stuff happened. I had no idea what was going on, but once I got into my bathroom and got comfy, I texted my parents asking them if they got the alert. They also did. They said citizens of the world. Did they actually broadcast that to world? I asked myself. So I texted an internet friend that lives across the world, and they said they got it too. Same exact message. And to be honest, it's kind of scary. They tell you what to do, but not what's going on, and people are scared of that. 20 minutes later, emergency alert. This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. Unknown creatures have been knocking on people's doors and been killing people that open the door. There is 5 major hotspots: Washington, D.C., Tokyo, Toronto, Moscow, and London. They have been located all around, but it seems as if they are attacking those first. This is an invasion. Stay in your rooms. Do not open any doors. Do not look outside. They can kill you instantly with just a look. May God help us all. Emergency nuke sirens are going off. Tornado sirens are going off. What is going on? Is this a prank? How can an invasion be real? Are aliens real? How can I even comprehend that? I had car alarms going off. I hear things being destroyed. They are here. They are killing. It sounds like a war zone out there, but without any guns. What can the government do? Just shoot them. But they would die looking at them. There's no possible way we could ever survive this. We are going to die. I text my parents, but no answer. I text my brother and sister, no answer. I start to panic now. What if my family is gone, and all I can do is listen to other people's families get murdered? The nuke sirens have started again, and they are very loud, shaking my whole apartment. I wonder what the other people in my building are thinking. Probably like me. This is it. This is the end of the world. Everyone on this planet will die. I hear a knock on my door. I don't answer it. I hear someone screaming for me to open it. I mean, it sounded human. Should I open it? No, that would be stupid. Emergency alert. This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. The extraterrestrial are attacking every major city in the world. There is a lot of them. We have not found out what they want. Stay inside. Millions, if not billions, are dead. Stay inside. It's as if the government have given up now. There's no way to fight, and these messages are less helpful each time they come on. If billions are dying, then I don't know how we can survive this. I mean, I have so far, but it doesn't sound like for long. I hear buildings being destroyed. I hear cars being destroyed. My building has been hit a few times. I'm hearing my world crumble before me. At this point, there's no reason to hope anymore. There's so many dying, and there's so much chaos, they will get everyone. I would love to know what one of these things looks like. But if I see them, I die. I hope someone takes a picture, and if we do survive, I want to see it. I wanted to see what's killing us. But the end is nowhere near, and I don't even know how many people we have left. Should I just kill myself? Maybe I should die before they get me. I don't want to die by those things. Plus, what if I do survive and get survivor's guilt? Then there's no way emergency alert. This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. The extraterrestrial have left, and left billions of people dead. If you are alive, please tap the button on your phone now. If on a radio, tune to 104 and state your name and city. We will update you in 20 minutes. There's no way I would want to live. That's what I was going to say. And yet somehow, I'm actually alive. Do I want to die now? Well, no. But how many people are alive? What did these things want? Why did they attack us? There's too many questions to even ask right now. At this point, all we can do is try to figure out some numbers and restart society. How can a world like ours recover from something like this? How long until society is normal again? Will humanity ever be the same? I don't know. What I do know is that I could lost everything. I will text my friends and family and come back with some numbers. Emergency alert. This is not a test. I repeat, this is not a test. We have reported a little over 1 billion people accounted for. Not every country has the technology, so we will investigate those countries in the coming months. We do not understand what these creatures wanted, nor what they have taken. In the next month or two, we will be figuring out the next steps for humanity. May God help us all. Only 3 people I know survived: my sister, my uncle, and my best friend. Everyone else is dead. I want to kill myself, but at the same time, humanity needs me. We need each other to continue human life. Only time will tell what to do next. If there's anything next, it's 2 weeks later. The guilt is too much. I'm a fucking coward. Goodbye. This is not a suicide note. 3 months ago, I learned of my uncle's passing. We weren't particularly close, but he left me one of his houses in the will. I was touched, but just wanted to sell it off. I am a fairly new father of twin girls and didn't need another thing to manage right now. To speed up the process, I decided to travel across the country to live in the house until a sale was assured. My job just requires a laptop and phone, so I was approved to work remotely for the time being. Unfortunately, my wife had to stay at her job, so I had to come alone. At first, I treated it as a mini vacation. I had hoped it would only last a week, but the process was more involved than I thought. I had a realtor taking care of most things, but after a month, I'm still here. I noticed things going wrong right away. Stuff was never where I last placed it. I'd see shadows out of the corner of my eye. I'd lose track of time constantly. I thought it was caused by stress, loneliness. Except for the few times the realtor came by with prospective buyers, the house was the quietest place I had ever been in. Before I completely lost my mind, the neighbor came by with a dog. She was an elderly woman who explained that she had been dog sitting while my uncle was in the hospital. Now that I was here, she thought I should take Buster, the golden retriever. I thought the neighbor might have been forgetful because she seemed to think my uncle had just passed last week. Either way, I fell in love with Buster, and his presence was exactly what I needed. I even thought it would be a tremendous present to bring home to my girls. I just hoped my wife would feel the same way. However, even the dog could tell something was wrong with the house. Buster accepted his new living arrangements pretty quickly, but would never willingly go upstairs. This was all right with me at the time. I thought it would make it easier to keep track of him. Then, Buster disappeared. Literally, 1 second he was standing right behind me as I was opening the treat jar to give him a snack. My eyes left him for just a moment to put the jar back, and then he was gone. I ran through the whole house calling his name. The kitchen was connected to the living room, and on the other end of that was the master bedroom and study. The other end of the kitchen led to a dining room, which was connected to the entrance hall that also led into the living room and stairs to the second floor. After walking upstairs, you had a choice of right or left along a balcony that overlooked the living room on one side and entrance on the other. Going left led immediately to a guest room and game room. Going right led to 2 more guest rooms and a bathroom at the end of the hall. I looked in every room and had to accept that somehow the dog made it outside, even though there was no doggy door and every door and window had been closed and locked. So I searched the surrounding neighborhood for another hour before giving up. I was thinking about making flyers when I opened the front door and heard Buster scrambling towards me from the kitchen. I was ecstatic, of course, but I just couldn't wrap my head around how I could have missed him. I let Buster sleep in the bed with me that night. In hindsight, it was a huge mistake, but it made me feel better at the time. Things picked up at work though, and I soon forgot about all the strangeness surrounding this house. Clients called me constantly, but we were getting a lot done, and I landed multiple large contracts in a row. I was working around the clock, but I knew I'd be due a promotion once I returned to the home office. Several times I'd get lost in a phone call or spreadsheet and suddenly find that it was nighttime. I'd be so absorbed with work that I would block out Buster whining for food or to go outside. I started to set alarms to keep track, but I had too many important clients to slow down. I was on top of the world, but my health was starting to suffer. I'd forget to eat and even sleep sometimes. There was always something else to do or someone to talk to. I even got better at taking care of Buster, better than I was taking care of myself at least. Then my good mood ended with a bang, literally. Buster was whining behind me as I finished another spreadsheet. Then we both heard a door slam upstairs. For the first time since I brought him inside, Buster ran upstairs by himself. I almost called the cops, but I felt silly with the phone in my hand. I started to doubt I had heard anything at all. And if there were an intruder, surely Buster would have been making more noise. So I mustered all the courage I could manage and crept upstairs with frying pan as my weapon. It was dark upstairs, but enough moonlight was coming in from the downstairs windows for me to make out Buster standing in front of the bathroom. I had purposely closed every door when I last came through here looking for the lost dog, but this door was now wide open. I flipped on the hallway light, but nothing happened. With no better ideas, I raised my frying pan high and walked slowly to the bathroom. There was no window in here, so it was pure darkness inside. I was terrified. Bizarrely, Buster just looked frozen. His tail stood straight up, and he just stood there, pointed towards the door. I tried to take it as a good sign that he still wasn't barking. That's what finally got me through the threshold and into the bathroom. The whole time, my eyes had been getting used to the darkness, and the bathroom was too small for there to have been anyone there without me noticing. I started to relax when I took a step forward into something sticky. I suddenly realized that I had my cell phone in my pocket. I pulled it out and turned it on to cast some light on the floor. I immediately dropped it at the sight of the bright red liquid that surrounded my feet. I fled the upstairs, and this triggered Buster to follow. This time, I had no trouble calling the police. Thankfully, there was already a patrol car nearby, so 2 officers arrived within a couple of minutes. Their powerful flashlights cut through the darkness like knives, but they soon found nothing was wrong with the upstairs lights. Something did appear to be wrong with my pipes, though, as they called out from above that the puddle was just rusty water. Because of their insistence, I climbed up the stairs again and clearly saw a muddy brown puddle in the bathroom. The banging must have been from a pipe breaking. Both cops had a laugh at my expense, but were otherwise understanding. They even gave me a number of good plumber, though my cell phone was ruined after I dropped and left it in the puddle. I would have to use the one landline in the kitchen from now on. I let them out and promised to call the plumber first thing in the morning. Yet, as exhausted as I was, I couldn't go to sleep over that excitement, so I stayed up to draft some more important documents for my company. Before I knew it, Buster had made another mess in the living room. I was dead tired and said some things to Buster that maybe I shouldn't have, and I did some things to him that I know I really shouldn't have. I decided to do something about the stress I had been under, and I spoke to my supervisor that same morning. To my surprise, they were happy to let me have the week off as a sort of mental vacation. Just like that, all my outstanding work was taken away. With nothing else to do, I tried to focus on Buster. I played games with him and fed him a bunch of treats to make up for my earlier neglect. Then I found the first message. I didn't notice it for some time since I had been avoiding the second floor, but I realized that I hadn't actually called the plumber. Before doing so, I went upstairs to see if things had gotten any worse. Instead, I immediately saw a message written in red on the hallway wall. It read, "Losing your mind?" For a second, I kinda did. I was scared to death at the thought that someone had to have sneaked into my house while I was there. Probably when I was sleeping. I won't bear repeating everything I said or did right after. Let's just say I hadn't become any braver since the banging. Eventually, I unlocked my bedroom door and made my way to the kitchen with Buster leading the way. I called the police again. Those same 2 officers were able to show up, and then, slowly, we cleared every inch of the house. Yet, we found no one. Everything was locked. No sign of forced entry. The police actually took me seriously, something that bewildered me at the time, and admitted that this isn't the first house in this neighborhood to experience this. There had been a series of break-ins where nothing was stolen, but the police officers still offered to have a car sit outside for the night. Even though I took them up on this, I soon realized that I'd never get to sleep tonight in this house. So I called my only friend in town and really in the whole state, an old college roommate who coincidentally lived 30 minutes away. He offered to pick me and Buster up in a few hours, so I busied myself with packing up my suitcase. I didn't know how long I would need, so I pretty much packed everything I had brought with me to the house in the first place. I left my room to pick up some doggy toys when my friend called to say he was waiting outside. I decided to hang up the phone and meet him immediately. I needed the human company, and he could help me move my stuff. But the driveway was empty. There was no friend, no car. I called him back immediately, and he insisted he was outside. I listened to him get out of his car and walk up to the front door. He knocked, and I could hear the door open and an elderly woman greet him. My friend asked for my name and mentioned my uncle. The woman said she had never heard of either of us. After thanking her, my friend left and asked me if I had gotten all that. I told him I must have given him the wrong address. He rattled off the correct one and confirmed he was there. After asking him to wait, and I left the house again, I walked out to the street and looked back at the numbers written on the curb and on the mailbox. Only there weren't any numbers, just a message, "Losing your mind?" on the curb. Written in red. The temptation to leave right away was great. I could just start walking and never stop. But I had to get my stuff and, more importantly, Buster, so I entered the house one last time. When I came back to the room, my suitcase was empty. Everything I had just spent the last hour packing up was back in its proper place. Despite how impossible this was, I focused on only one goal. We needed to leave. I put a leash on Buster and was shocked to see how haggard he was. I resolved to make it up to him when this was all over. I tried to leave out the front door like nothing was wrong, but I couldn't open it. The knob turned freely, but the deadbolt wouldn't slide back. I was really scared now, but Buster's presence helped. I knelt down to give him a hug, and he gave me an idea while licking my face. Whatever was happening, it sure wasn't the result of a maniac hiding in my house. Still, I didn't know what forces were actually opposing me, so I walked to the backyard and said loudly, "Well, Buster, time for a little walk." The glass door slid open easily. Buster bounded out happily. I guess it had been a long time since I let him outside. I followed more tentatively and, for the first time, examined the backyard closely. There was an iron fence surrounding the yard with another space between the bars that Buster could slip through. And then I saw it. A tree that grew too close to the fence and had several branches extending through and above it. I assumed the gate would be supernaturally locked too, so this was my exit. Buster didn't need any prodding. He waited patiently for me on the other side as I painfully pulled myself up and over the fence. I was suddenly aware of how weak and tired my recent lifestyle had made me. When I was in the process of climbing down the tree on the other side, Buster growled once and then took off like a shot towards a nearby hill. I jumped down and gave chase. He disappeared over the top, and I scrambled to keep up on the surprisingly steep surface. Luckily, I found where someone had laid some stone bricks into the side for an easier way up. It was still steep enough that I had to focus on placing my feet correctly to keep from sliding, so I was looking down when my next reach up resulted in my hand grabbing carpet. Confused, I looked up, to see the second floor landing. I looked down to see the rest of the stairs that led to the entrance hall and living room of the house. Buster was nowhere to be found. Demoralized and dead tired, I crawled the final steps and just sat on the landing for a while, occasionally calling for Buster. Eventually, the kitchen phone rang. Whatever ghosts were messing with me, I realized they couldn't stop outside forces from helping. I tumbled down the stairs in my haste and landed hard on the cold tiles below. But I was only dazed for a second and soon was in the kitchen with the phone in my hand. My wife's warm voice filled me with hope. She was concerned that she hadn't heard from me in a while. I couldn't recall the last time I had even tried. She was trying to tell me that my work hadn't heard from me in a week while I tried to tell her to call the police. Her words gave me pause though. I asked, "What do you mean? I was given the week off." "Dear, I thought you were supposed to continue working as soon as you got there." Yeah. But they gave me a week off because of all the stress I've been under. Wait a second. How long have I been out here?" Honey, you've been gone almost 9 days now. My stomach sunk, but I didn't hesitate to say, listen, you need to call the cops. Something is wrong. I think I'm having a medical emergency. I had just been trying to come up with an excuse to limit the amount of follow-up questions, but I ended up realizing that this was actually the most likely explanation. Maybe I was just suffering from a gas leak or brain tumor. Ironically, either of those options seemed preferable than living in a haunted house. My wife asked, "Baby, what's wrong? Are you okay?" I thought I saw a shadow move out of the corner of my eye as I answered, "Yes, I'm okay, but no, I need help. There's something wrong about this house." "You aren't making any sense. Just listen to me. Call the police and tell him my uncle's name. Tell them to come to this house and an ambulance might be needed. Please help me." "Please help you? Pretty please? With a cherry on top?" I stared at the phone in my hand as my wife's voice continued to come out of it. It sounded like her, but in a mocking tone I've never actually heard from her before. She said, "Does your tummy hurt? When's the last time you ate? I wonder what Buster tastes like." I slammed the phone down, but whatever it was on the other side was right. My stomach was hurting. I couldn't remember the last time I had eaten. On cue, I heard Buster whining from upstairs. Only after I started running towards the stairs did I notice just how bruised and sore my legs were from my spill down those steps. I pushed through the pain and climbed the stairs yet again. Buster was back in front of the bathroom, lying on his side and looking thinner than I had ever seen him. "Losing your mind?" was written all over the hallway now, including on the ceiling and floor. I no longer had any doubt the messages were written in blood. Some of them were still dripping. I walked over and picked up Buster while a banging started at my front door. I would have jumped if Buster hadn't been weighing me down. I heard the front door open, and whoever it was identified themselves as the police. I even recognized the voice as belonging to one of the officers who had visited previously. Why can't I remember his name? After calling out that I was upstairs, I turned with Buster and found the hallway stretched before me, many times its original length. Despite how thin he looked, Buster felt heavier than ever. I knew this was all just some sort of trick to not get me in touch with the police officer. I thought I must have really been talking to my wife. She had to have come through with calling the police, and the ghosts just distorted the end of the call. So I started my trek back to the stairs and shuffled my feet as fast as I could, yelling all the way. But then a voice answered the police officer. A woman's voice, my wife's voice. I could hear her say, "I'm sorry, my husband wasn't feeling well. He's resting in the bedroom. Can I help you?" I screamed as loud as I could just to get attention, but it was no use. I heard the officer say, "I'd like to check up on him, all the same." Sure, come in. He's right through here." It was right out of a nightmare. I was sweating profusely while every step seemed to get me nowhere. I tried to speed up, but the hallway just stretched further. And then I heard a man's blood-curdling scream from downstairs. Suddenly, the hallway snapped back and I found myself somehow right at the top of the stairs. My momentum couldn't be stopped. I fell down the stairs and landed hard. On top of Buster. He howled in pain, but at least he was alive. I saw a long, thick trail of blood go around the corner and under my closed bedroom door. There was still a shadow of something under the door. I painfully crept to the kitchen and grabbed my trusty frying pan before making my way back to the bedroom door, as quietly as I could. My eyes watched the moving shadows nervously. Whatever was waiting there had killed a man. That meant it could kill me. But if it could have a physical impact, then surely it had to be susceptible to a physical impact too. So I raised the frying pan and slowly started to turn the handle. Before I made much progress, the door flew open on its own and something turned suddenly to me. I swung my frying pan down. The cop stood before me, a smile frozen on his face. We both looked down at the knife plunged into his chest. My hand was still wrapped around the handle. He fell to the side and I fell backwards to sit heavily on the now clean floor. I was positive I had picked up the frying pan. I could remember its weight. But now I also remembered going to the kitchen and pulling out the knife. I seriously wondered if I was losing my mind. I looked down to find I had the knife in my hands again. I dropped it at once and crawled back to check on Buster. He wasn't moving. I put my head on his flank and was devastated to feel he was still warm but not breathing. I didn't know what to do, so I did nothing. I did nothing for a long time. I was lethargic, but somehow made it to the couch in the living room. I waited there until nightfall and then slept on the couch. When I woke up, I waited some more. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for, but nothing horrible was happening to me while I waited. I wasn't in a hurry to change that. But the bodies of Buster and the cop were still there. I needed to do something. My stomach rumbled as I finally got off the couch. That was another problem with just staying put. First things first, I found a shovel in an outdoor closet attached to the backyard porch. Digging the hole was exhausting, so I settled for just burying Buster now. I planned on getting to the cop after finding something to eat. I picked up Buster and carried him outside. His fur was still so warm. It was hard to believe he was gone, but there was no life behind his big brown eyes. I gently laid him down in the hole and got to work. Sometime later, I wandered into the kitchen and raided the pantry. The house was quiet, apart from my efforts. Whenever I stopped moving, the silence was complete. I wondered if the ghosts had just been trying to make me a murderer after all. Now that their goal had been met, maybe they would leave me alone for a while. Just in time because I was starving and didn't need any more distractions. I opened a box of cereal and had a handful up to my lips when I paused. How could I tell I was actually eating what I was looking at? What if I had actually been opening a box of rat poison? I still wasn't sure what these ghosts were capable of. I imagined the food turning into worms after it was already in my mouth. With that thought, I threw the cereal to the ground and stomped off, no longer hungry. I needed to concentrate my efforts on leaving this place. Right on cue, I walked by the front door. It was wide open. Instinctively, I made a leap for it before stopping with my outstretched hand just a foot short of the door. This had to be another trick. I could see the door slamming shut in my face or even taking a few of my fingers with it. I could feel a breeze enter the house, but I was too scared to move. This was the most impossible situation I had ever been in or even heard of. All of my senses had failed me before. However, my need for freedom eventually caused my feet to move. Upon slowly exiting the house, I saw the cop car just sitting in my driveway. The door was unlocked, and the keys were sitting in the front seat. My mind went wild trying to explain the situation. Maybe the cop was secretly a murderer and had killed previous owners of this house. Maybe his sacrifice helped them move on. I couldn't think of any other explanation for my good luck at the time. So I just pushed my misgivings down and got in. I drove out of the neighborhood without incident, but I had new problems. I was in an unfamiliar city, driving a cop car with no money or other belongings on me, and I had no idea what to do next. So I kept driving. It felt good to be free of that house. It felt good to see the sun. So I kept driving, on and on. Left turn, right turn, left turn, right turn. No idea where I'm going. And then I realized I hadn't seen any other cars on the road for some time. Where was everyone? Where was I? The sinking feeling happened again, in the pit of my stomach, but also around my whole body. I sunk back into the car seat and then realized I was sitting in an armchair, back in the living room of my uncle's house. My arms were up like I was still holding onto a steering wheel. I started to cry with frustration as I stood up and screamed. How long had I been sitting there with a stupid grin, moving my arms up and down like a madman? I turned around and saw my work laptop on the dining room table. It was on and glowing at me. I walked over to it and saw that something was already written down in this post. It read, "Lost your mind? Good. Now you won't mind losing the rest." Suddenly, my fist felt weighed down. I raised it to find another kitchen knife in my hand. I dropped it immediately. I erased the message and started to type out a request for help. I ignored the screen and just focused on the keys. But I kept hitting them wrong, and another message slowly formed. "I'm sorry. I've disappointed you all. For the last time, goodbye." I could have screamed again, but I noticed something had changed. I wasn't in the dining room anymore. I was in the study. I kept writing and writing and writing, and my own words started to come out. I have sent out emails requesting help. I've posted on the local police department's Facebook for assistance, and I've just tried to keep writing no matter what. This is my latest attempt to keep my sanity. Whenever I've tried to take a break, I find myself in a new room with new horrors descending on me. Once I opened the study door, out to a hellish landscape, and almost stepped out onto lava. I wasn't sure if it was all an illusion, but I didn't even want to have a vision of my feet burning, so I just closed the door and resumed writing. I'm not even sure this is all because of ghosts. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and the truth is simply that I have no idea what's going on. As I've gone over these crazy events, I've realized that I can't recall my uncle's name or what he looked like. I'm not sure I ever had an uncle. I'm trying to think really hard about how I came here. Did I fly? Drive? I can't remember. Have I always been here? Even weirder, I can't remember my realtor's name or even what gender they are. I've met them in person several times. Why don't I know things I should? I can't even remember the name of my daughters or my wife. Am I even a father? Am I even a person? I know I must be because here I am writing in this small study. But now that I think about it, I can't remember who my parents are, what they look like, or anything about my childhood. Now, I just remember this house and all the nightmares, waking and otherwise, I've experienced here. I'm feeling a lot like I was back in the cop car. I found a way forward, but I really don't know what to do next. This is not a way to live, and I'm getting more and more tired. I'm so hungry, and I'm finding it harder to focus. I keep hearing voices, and they're getting louder. I know if I stop writing, I won't last long, but I'm running out of things to say. My hands are tired. I'm tired. So tired D A B C D F G I Ch boir stu bu XYZ. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dogs. I need to keep writing, but I don't know what to say anymore. What's my name? I don't know. I'll die if I stop writing. I'll die if I stop working. A prickigak ill. The quick brown feop jumped over the lazy dogs. Dogs, Buster. I miss Buster. I wish I could pet him one last time. But was he ever real? Is anything? I'm so tired, so hungry. I need to focus. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy goodbye. The quick brown, I'm sorry, jumped O pointed you lazy dogs, sued bye. I'm quick. I've jumped disap the all last time lazy dogs, I'm sorry, jumped over, disappointed you lazy. For the lazy dogs, goodbye. I'm sorry, I've disappointed you all. For the last time, goodbye. I stopped at a diner on my way home from work. I've been here for what feels like an hour. My phone says it's been 4 days. I need someone to read this. I stopped here because I was tired and hungry, and the place looked warm from the highway. Small diner, the kind that's been there since before the interstate. Red booths, laminated menus, a pie case by the register. The waitress seated me and brought coffee without me asking, and I thought that was nice. That was at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. My phone says it's Saturday. I noticed because I went to text my sister and the date was wrong. I thought it was a glitch. I restarted the phone, Saturday, 2:47 p.m., 4 days after I walked through that door. I haven't left the booth. I know how that sounds. I know the first thing you're thinking is that I must have left, must have slept somewhere, must have lost time somehow, but I haven't. I'm sitting in the same booth I was seated in Tuesday evening. I've been drinking coffee and eating pie and watching the highway through the window, and it's felt like maybe an hour, maybe 2 at most. 4 days have passed outside. I flagged the waitress, the same one who seated me, middle-aged, reading glasses on a chain, name tag that says D. I've watched her work every table in this place. She refills my coffee every time it gets low without me asking. She's been here the whole time. I said, D, how long have I been sitting here? She looked at me the way you look at someone who's asked a normal question and said, since Tuesday, hon? You want more pie. Just like that. Since Tuesday, hon. Like it was nothing. Like it was completely normal for a person to sit in a diner booth for 4 days without moving. I said, is that normal? She said, some people need to sit for a while. She said it like it was something she'd said before, many times. I looked around the diner properly for the first time. There are 4 other people here, different booths, all alone, all with coffee, all looking out the windows at the highway with that same slightly unfocused expression I probably have right now. I don't know when they arrived. I asked Dee about the man in the corner booth, gray jacket, older, been there as long as I can remember. She said, oh, he's been here a good while. I asked how long. She thought about it. She said, since before my time, and I've been here 11 years. I looked at the man. He looked back at me. Not startled, not curious, just acknowledging. The way you acknowledge someone in a waiting room, like we're both waiting for the same thing. I asked Dee what we were waiting for. She set down the coffee pot and looked at me for a moment and said, "You'll know when it's time to go." She said, "Everyone does." She said, "The highway looks different when it's time. You'll see your exit and you'll just know." I asked, "What happens if you miss it?" She picked the coffee pot back up. She said, "That's not something I'd worry about, hon." She said, "Most people don't miss it. Most people." I've been watching the highway since she said that. The light is different now. Late afternoon, the kind of golden that makes everything look slightly unreal. Cars passing, same as always. I'm looking for something in the traffic, but I don't know what it looks like. The man in the corner booth is still there. Still watching the highway. He's been waiting since before Dee started working here, 11 years ago. I don't know what he missed. I don't know how you miss it. I'm not gonna look away from that window. I'm not gonna look away. We'll update if anything changes or if I figure out what I'm supposed to be looking for. I didn't know what it was, but it was following me. I am a 33-year-old man from Manila, Philippines. This story happened when I was only 10. My mother was a coach, and her team always made it to the nationals. That year, the competition was held in Naga City in the Bicol region. My dad worked abroad, so my mom always took my brother and me with her when she traveled. My mother kept my younger brother with her in the city, but I was sent to stay with Lolo Eric. Even as a 10-year-old, I've always been reliable when commuting, so it didn't bother me that I had to do it every day during our stay there. Lolo Eric was my grandma's younger brother. He was originally from Manila too, but he moved to Bicol and started his family there. Lolo Eric's house was surrounded by huge rice fields. It was a 20-minute trip from the city and quite a walk from the main road. Everything looked normal during the day. There were a few houses nearby and a long, unpaved road in the middle of the fields. On my first night, I went to bed early at 8 p.m. People in the province wake up very early, usually around 4 a.m., but I slept until 7 a.m. before going to the city to meet my mom. The events took place on the second day. The sun was already setting when I started my trip back to Lolo Eric's. I remembered him telling me to be home before the sun sets. His voice was stern, and it came out of nowhere. It felt weird, but I didn't think much of it. On my way back, I rode what I thought was a public jeepney, and there were many old women with big baskets of vegetables inside. They were bringing produce from the nearby market, I thought. When I tried to pay, the old woman beside me smiled. "Wag na, iho, sabay ka na lang sa amin." "It's all right, child. We'll get you to your stop for free." It turned out that the jeepney was theirs. They asked where I was going. I told them I was headed to San Roque, not the real name, near the chapel. When I said that, all heads turned to look at me. They all looked concerned and scared at the same time. It was creepy how they all slowly gazed in my direction with those horrified looks. Seeing my confusion, the old woman tried to smile to comfort me, but she failed. She said, "Sige ho, basta pagbaba mo, diretso ka lang uwi ha. Wag na wag kang lilingon sa likod mo." Go on, boy, but once you get off, go straight home. Do not ever look back. That was very strange. I was just a child, so I didn't understand what the big deal was. I just nodded. When I reached my stop, I got off the jeepney and thought nothing of it. I reached the chapel and turned toward the rice fields. That was when I understood why everyone was so worried. The road to my Lolo's house was scary. It was a long, dirt road with makeshift lampposts that did not give much light. I had to walk in total darkness for the parts of the road without lights. I became nervous instantly. I started walking. Then I heard it. The sound of footsteps, if they can be called that, came from the darkness behind me. It was distant, but impossibly clear in the silence of the fields. It wasn't a normal walk. It was the sound of something dragging a heavy limb, a bag, or perhaps a body. The pace was steady. It didn't speed up, and it didn't slow down. I tried to reason with myself. It isn't that unusual to be on a road with someone else. I mean, it was a road, but the woman's warning was screaming in my ears. I knew I wasn't supposed to, but for my own sanity, I had to see for myself. That's when I made the big mistake of looking back. The road was empty. The pale light showed nothing, and around me was just dirt and stones. No one was there, not even a silhouette against the distant light. My heart started pounding. I turned back and walked faster. I knew something was wrong. I increased my pace and looked forward, trying my best to ignore the fear, but I was not very successful at it. Then, the sound returned. It was somehow louder. It was no longer that distant. It was perhaps 10 meters or so behind me. I was shaking, but I didn't want to just run, and I'm not even sure if I was physically able to. I didn't know what that thing was or what it was capable of. Whatever it was, it would be in my best interest not to agitate it, or so I foolishly thought. I reached the third, then the fourth lamppost. My breathing was heavy and fast. Every time I hit a patch of darkness, the sound moved closer, and it didn't make any sense. The footsteps, the dragging sound, it never changed its rhythm. It never increased its speed, but it was surely getting closer. Then it happened. In all honesty, I didn't know if I really saw what I saw, or if it was just my own mind playing tricks on me. Out of the corner of my right eye, there it was. A pale, distorted shape, a face, if you could call it that, or at least half of it, was creeping slowly into my peripheral vision. It was peeking over my shoulder, inching forward as if trying to see my own face. I couldn't look. I tilted my head slowly to the left, staring at the dark rice fields. I was desperately fighting back my own tears at this point. Then, a thought colder than the night air hit me. If it decides to switch sides and peek from the left, it will be staring directly into my eyes. I couldn't take it anymore. I bolted. I ran until my lungs burned, my feet slamming against the unpaved earth. I debated whether I should go and knock on any of the houses, but the mere sight of them scared me too, for whatever reason. Then I saw a dark figure ahead. I stopped, unsure of what to do. Between my breaths, I could taste fear at the back of my throat. I didn't even know what was possible. Before I could stop myself, I instinctively looked back. Whatever was behind me was no longer there. I started to genuinely fear for my life, realizing that it had somehow appeared in front of me and was now coming at me to do God knows what. I had nowhere else to run. If this thing could just appear out of nowhere, then there was no place for me to hide. I honestly started to lose hope and just closed my eyes. They say that life will flash before your eyes when you're nearing your own demise. But for me, there was nothing. It was just plain darkness. I was alone, both on that road and in my own head. Then I heard a voice. It was Lolo Eric. It was him. He was standing there in front of me, his silhouette dark against the last post. He looked terrified. When I came to my senses, I threw myself at him, sobbing and screaming, "Lolo, Lolo, may huma habol sa akin. Grandpa, Grandpa, something is chasing me." He didn't think twice. He just urged me to hurry back and held my hand tight, his own body tensed. We reached his house, closed the gate, and he pulled me into a reassuring hug. Tahan na, ligtas ka na. Nandito na tayo sa bahay, he whispered. You're good, you're safe, we're home now. Once we were inside and the doors were bolted, the silence returned. Lolo Eric sat me down. He explained that when I didn't make it back before sunset, he hoped I had stayed with my mom, but he had a bad feeling he couldn't shake. He was about to go out and meet me at the chapel. We had no cell phones to communicate back then, so I understood his hesitation, but still. When I calmed down, he didn't ask what I saw. He didn't ask what happened. He just looked at me with a heavy, grim concern and said, "Sabi ko naman sa iyo, huwag kang papaab ng gabi sa daan. I told you, be home before dark." The way he said it scared me more than the whole encounter itself. Then the realization hit me. His stern voice when he told me to be home early, and the creepy advice from the older women from the ride home telling me not to look back. It wasn't a warning about a stranger, a ghost, or whatever. It was the rule of the land. They knew exactly what was out there, and they knew that there was nothing they could do about it. I wasn't the first person it had followed, and in the eerie silence of those fields at night, I knew I wouldn't be the last. I never stayed out past 4 p.m. for the rest of that trip, and everything turned out okay. Lolo, Eric, and I never talked about it again. I didn't want to. I just needed to forget, knowing full well I never could. I didn't even tell my mom about what happened. I didn't want her to worry and lose her focus on the Nationals. After all, I made it out safe, despite still trembling from the shock of it all. To this day, even in the brightly lit streets of Manila, the sound of footsteps behind me when I'm alone at night turns my blood to ice. It doesn't matter how bright the city is. One stray echo drags me right back to that place, in that suffocating darkness, with that paralyzing fear, with that horrifying thing. I've worked at a sleep study clinic for 4 years. We monitor patients, log data, write reports. It's a quiet job most of the time. People sleep and we watch, and almost nothing happens that you can't explain with science. Almost nothing. The patient arrived 9 days ago. I'm going to call her Anne because I can't use her real name. 54 years old, referred by her doctor for severe hypersomnia, sleep episodes lasting between 16 and 20 hours a day. Nothing we hadn't seen before. What we hadn't seen before is that on day 6, she stopped waking up. It's not a coma. Her vitals are perfect, her brain activity is normal, she breathes on her own, her eyes move under her eyelids like she's dreaming. She just won't wake up. We've spent 3 days trying to understand why, and nobody has an answer that actually satisfies me. I work the night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., alone with the monitors and the sound of the machines, and Anne sleeping behind the glass. Last night at 2 a.m., Anne started talking. That happens sometimes. People talk in their sleep, say fragments of things, pieces of dreams. You log it and move on. It's not unusual. What Anne said wasn't a dream fragment. She said there's a stain on the ceiling above the bed, like water damage. Been there a while. I went very still. I have a water stain on my bedroom ceiling, above my bed. It's been there since I moved in 2 years ago, and I never reported it because the maintenance request felt like too much effort. I said Anne into the microphone. Anne, can you hear me? She didn't respond. Kept sleeping. The monitors didn't change. 10 minutes later, she said the glass on the nightstand is empty. She always leaves it empty. She, not I. She. Like she wasn't talking about herself. Like she was describing someone else. I looked at my phone. I had a photo of my room from 2 weeks ago, taken to send to a friend who was helping me find a rug. I opened it. Glass on the nightstand. Empty. I sat there for a long time after that, just listening to the sound of the machines and Anne breathing slow and even behind the glass. At 4 a.m., she said something else. She said she doesn't know we're connected. She hasn't figured it out yet. Then she said, but she will. She's close. I didn't sleep when I got home. I've been sitting in my car outside my building for an hour trying to decide if I should go up. My bedroom ceiling is right above where Anne said it was. The glass on my nightstand is empty because I never remember to fill it before bed. And I don't know what connected means in this context, but I can't stop thinking about one specific thing. Annie arrived at the clinic 9 days ago. 9 days ago, I started having dreams I can't remember. I never used to dream. We'll update tomorrow if anything changes tonight. Update. Okay, so I have about 20 minutes before my supervisor gets back, and I need to write this down before I talk myself out of it. Anne woke up this morning, not gradually, not the way patients usually surface from long sleep episodes, groggy and confused and asking where they are. She just opened her eyes. Fully. Like she'd been awake for a while already and had been waiting for the right moment to let us know. I was the only one in the monitoring room when it happened. 4:47 a.m. I was on my third coffee and running the overnight logs when the movement sensors triggered, and I looked up at the feed, and she was just sitting up, looking at the ceiling. I hit the intercom. Anne, can you hear me? Standard protocol. She turned her head toward the speaker, slowly, like she knew exactly where it was. I said, Anne, how are you feeling? Do you know where you are? She didn't answer that. What she said was, she works the night shift. I froze. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking at a point slightly to the left of it, like she was describing something to someone I couldn't see. She said she's been here 4 years. She's good at her job. She doesn't talk about it much when she gets home because there's nobody to talk to. Every single thing she said was correct. I don't have a roommate. I don't talk about work. I've been here 4 years as of last month. I said, Anne, who are you talking about? She said she has a plant on her windowsill that she keeps forgetting to water. It's still alive, though. She said it like she found that interesting. Like it meant something. My plant has been half dead for 8 months and somehow keeps not dying. And I don't know why, and I've thought about it more than I should. I said, Anne, look at the camera, please. She turned and looked directly at it. She said she doesn't know we're connected yet, but she's close. She said it in the same tone you'd use to describe someone who's almost figured out a puzzle. Then she said she started dreaming 9 days ago, the same night I arrived. I haven't moved from this chair since she said that, because I did the math when she said it, and she's right. Anne was admitted 9 days ago. 9 days ago, I started having dreams I can't remember in the morning. I put that in my original post, and I haven't thought about it since because there's been too much else to think about. But she knew that. She knew that without me telling her. My supervisor got here at 6 a.m., and Anne was asleep again by then. Vitals normal, eyes closed, breathing slow and even. He looked at the overnight logs and said she's showing signs of natural sleep cycling now, which is good news, and I nodded and said, yes, it is. I didn't tell him about 4:47 a.m. I don't know why I didn't tell him. Actually, I do know why. Because the way Anne said she's close didn't sound like a threat. It didn't sound like a warning either. It sounded like something you say when you're rooting for someone. I'm back tonight for another shift. I keep thinking about what she said, that she doesn't know we're connected yet. The yet is the part I can't stop turning over. Like there's a specific moment coming where I'm going to understand something. And Anne already knows when it is, and she's just waiting for me to catch up. I'm not sure I want to catch up, but I'm going back tonight anyway. Update 2, I almost didn't come back tonight. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes with the engine running, telling myself I could just call in sick and go home and sleep and deal with this tomorrow. I've never called in sick in 4 years. I went inside anyway. Anne was awake when I got here. Not sitting up this time, just lying there with her eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Vitals normal, completely still. If it weren't for the eyes, you'd think nothing had changed. I sat down at the monitoring station and pulled up her file and tried to act like everything was normal, and about 10 minutes in, she said, "Are you scared of me?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at the intercom button for a second and then pressed it and said, "Anne, how are you feeling tonight?" She said, "That's not what I asked." I said, "No, I'm not scared of you." She said, "You should be a little." Not of me specifically, of what I know. I asked her what she knew. She was quiet for a long time. Long enough that I thought she'd fallen back asleep. Then she said, "Have you ever wondered why this job, out of everything? Why a sleep clinic?" I told her I needed the night shift differential. That's always been my answer when people ask, "The money is better at night?" She said, "That's what you tell people." She was right. I've worked nights since I was 19. Every job I've ever had has been a night job. I've never examined that too closely, because examining things too closely has never been something I'm good at. She said some people are built for the threshold, the hours between 2 and 4 a.m. when the membrane gets thin. Most people sleep through it because their bodies know better, but some people are awake for it every night without knowing why. I asked her what membrane. She said between here and the place where I've been for the past 9 days. I asked her what that place was like. Another long pause. She said it's not dark the way you'd think. It's more like being very far away from something and watching it through glass. She said she could see everything from there. Her apartment, her sister's house, the route she drives to work every morning. She said she could see me. I didn't say anything. She said, "I've been watching you for 9 days before I knew your name or why. Just this pull towards something. The way you feel when you almost remember a dream but not quite. I kept moving toward it, and then I'd wake up a little and lose it and have to start again." I said, "What were you moving toward?" She said, "You, but not you specifically, what you are." I asked her what I was. She said the same thing I am, just on the other side of it. I don't know how long I sat there after she said that. The heating system kicked on at some point, and I startled at the sound, which tells you something about the state I was in. I finally asked her how she knew any of this. She said, because I was you once. Not you exactly, but the same position. Awake at 3 a.m. watching someone sleep behind glass and not understanding why I couldn't look away. She said it moves through people. Whatever this is, it needs someone awake on each side. Someone who chose the night without knowing why they chose it. She said when the person on one side finally figures it out, the connection transfers. The one who understood becomes the one who sleeps. And whoever was sleeping wakes up on this side. I asked her how long she'd been on this side before she came here. She said she didn't know. Long enough to forget most of it. Long enough that coming back felt like being born. I asked her what happened to the person before her. The one who was awake when she was sleeping. She looked directly at the camera. She said, "Why don't you check the clinic's patient records? Go back about 12 years. Look for someone with your job title who was admitted for hypersomnia and never woke up." I haven't moved from this chair since she said that, because I have access to the clinic's historical records. I've had access for 4 years and never once looked at anything outside of my current patient files because there was never a reason to. There's a rare election, there's a reason now. My supervisor gets here in 40 minutes. I'm gonna look before he arrives. Update 3, I found the file. I need to write this fast because I'm not at the clinic anymore, and I don't know if that was the right decision, but I couldn't stay in that building another minute. I pulled up the historical records at 5:52 a.m. 12 years back, like Anne said. I filtered by admission reason, hypersomnia, long-term, and there was one result. The name wasn't mine. I don't know if I was relieved or more scared because of it. I sat there for a second just breathing, and then I opened the file anyway, because I'd already come this far. The admission notes were normal. Female patient, mid-20s, referred for severe hypersomnia, admitted for observation. Vitals stable, no neurological explanation found. Attending physician noted patient appeared to be in a state of prolonged REM activity, with no natural cycling toward wakefulness. She was here for 8 months. The discharge notes just said, patient condition resolved. And no explanation of how, no follow-up recommended. The kind of notes you write when you want a file to be closed and not looked at again. I scrolled to the patient photo. I know her, not know her like a friend or a colleague. Know her the way you know someone who's been on the periphery of your life for so long, you stopped registering them as a person and started registering them as furniture. It's the woman who works the overnight shift at the gas station 2 blocks from my apartment. I've been stopping there after work for 4 years. She's always there. Always the same hours, always looks slightly more tired than a person should look. I've never asked her name. I looked at the name on the file, and then Anne said something through the intercom, and I slammed the laptop shut so fast I nearly knocked it off the desk. She said, "Did you find it?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Do you understand now?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "You will soon." She said it the same way she said everything. Calm, almost gentle, like she's been through this before and knows exactly how it goes. Then she said, "You should go home and sleep. You look tired." And here's the thing. I was tired. Bone tired suddenly in a way that came from nowhere. The kind of tired that makes your vision go soft at the edges and your thoughts start slipping. I looked at the clock and it was 6:03 a.m. and my supervisor was due any minute. And I packed my bag and I left. I told the front desk I wasn't feeling well and I walked out. I've been sitting in my car for 20 minutes. I need to go home. I know I need to go home. I need to sleep and eat something and think about this when my brain is working properly. But here's why I'm still in the parking lot. When I walked out of the monitoring room, I felt something behind me. Not heard, felt. The specific sensation of space being occupied that shouldn't be occupied. The way a room feels different when someone is standing in it even before you see them. I turned around. The hallway was empty. I kept walking, past the front desk, through the lobby, out the doors, and the whole way I felt it, steady. Patient, like something adjusting its pace to match mine without any urgency because it knew exactly where I was going and wasn't in any rush. I got in my car and locked the doors and it stopped. Or I stopped feeling it. I don't know if those are the same thing. I've been sitting here trying to convince myself it was exhaustion and low blood sugar, and too many nights alone with monitors and Anne's voice and my own thoughts in a quiet building. But 4 years ago, I took this job because the night differential was better. That's what I've always said. I'm sitting here in the parking lot in the early morning light trying to remember if that's actually true. And I can't. I can't remember why I took a night job at a sleep clinic at 24 years old. I can feel the memory there, the shape of it, but when I reach for the actual reason, it moves, like something that doesn't want to be looked at directly. Like it's been edited. I need to go home. I'm gonna go home. But I keep looking in the rearview mirror before I start the car, and I don't know what I'm checking for, and I don't know what I'm going to do if I see it. Update 4. I went to the gas station. I know how that sounds. I know the reasonable thing was to go home and sleep and maybe call someone, a friend, a doctor, anyone. But I had her name from the file, and I had the address of the station, and I've been stopping there for 4 years, and something about that felt like it meant something. Like it wasn't a coincidence that I chose that particular gas station out of the 6 between the clinic and my apartment. Like I chose it because some part of me already knew. I got there at 7:15 a.m. She was behind the counter, same as always. That particular kind of tired that I now understand differently than I did yesterday. There were 2 other customers. I waited until they left. Then I walked up to the counter and I said her name. She went very still. Not surprised exactly. More like someone who has been expecting a knock at the door for a long time and finally heard it. She looked at me for a long moment and then she said, "You found the file." I said, "Yes." She said, "How long have you worked there?" I said, 4 years. She closed her eyes briefly, like she was doing math she already knew the answer to. Then she said we should talk, and she called to someone in the back to cover the register. And she came around the counter, and we went and sat in her car in the parking lot. She talked for a long time. I'm going to write down what she said as accurately as I can because I need it outside of my head. She said it starts with the job. Always a job that puts you close to sleep, close to the threshold. She said she worked nights at a hospital before. Not in sleep specifically, but adjacent to it. The long, quiet hours, the monitoring, the waiting. She said she started noticing a patient who seemed to know things about her. Small things at first, then bigger things. She said she did exactly what I did. She investigated. She found a file. She found the person before her. I asked her how many people back she traced it. She said she stopped at 7. She said she thinks it goes back much further than that. She said she thinks it's been going for a very long time. This thing that moves through people, that needs someone awake on each side. I asked her what's on the other side. I asked her what Anne described as being very far away watching through glass. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "It's not frightening the way you'd think." She said it's more like being the part of yourself that watches. The part that's always slightly removed from your own life, observing, cataloging, noticing things the rest of you is too busy to see. She said when she was on that side, she understood things she'd spent her whole life almost understanding. Patterns in things. Connections between people and moments that on this side look like coincidence. I asked her if she missed it. She looked out the windshield for a long time. She said every day. Then she said something that made me sit very still. She said the transfer happens when the person on this side fully understands what's happening. Not suspects, not theorizes, understands completely. She said the moment of complete understanding is the moment the connection shifts. She said she's been watching me for 4 years coming into that gas station. She said she recognized what I was the first time she saw me, and she's been waiting for this conversation ever since. I asked her what happens to me when it transfers. She said I go to the other side. She said I'll sleep for a while. Days maybe longer. And when I wake up, I'll be where Anne was. Where she was. Where all of them were. I asked her if it was a choice. She looked at me then, really looked at me. She said it was never a choice for any of them. But she said, understanding that isn't frightening either once you're on the other side. She said from there you can see why you were always going to be here, why you took the night job at 24, why you chose that gas station, why Anne came to that specific clinic. She said none of it was random. She said it never is. I've been sitting in my own car in that same parking lot for the past hour. I can feel it happening. Not dramatically, not the way you'd expect. Just this slow settling, like something that's been slightly out of place my entire life, finally moving into alignment. The tiredness I felt at the clinic this morning is back, but different now. Deeper. Not unpleasant. I understand what's happening. I think that's the problem. I think understanding it is what makes it happen. I'm gonna go home now. I'm gonna lie down. I don't know how long I'll be gone, or what it's like, or if I'll be able to post from wherever I end up. But if someone starts working the night shift at a sleep clinic sometime in the next few weeks, and a patient starts describing their apartment in real time, just know it might be me, watching from the other side, finally understanding everything. Update 5. Hi. I don't really know how to start this. I've been reading through this account for the past 2 hours, trying to understand what I'm looking at. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm a colleague. I work the day shift at the same clinic. We weren't close, but we overlapped for 30 minutes every morning when she was finishing her shift and I was starting mine. She seemed fine, quiet, a little tired, but that's everyone who works nights. She didn't show up for her shift 3 days ago. That's not completely unusual, so nobody panicked immediately. People call in sick, people sleep through alarms. Her supervisor tried calling, no answer. Tried again the next day, nothing. Yesterday, someone went to her apartment to check on her. The door was unlocked. Her keys were on the counter. Her phone was on the couch, battery dead. Her car was in the parking lot. She was in her bed, asleep. They couldn't wake her up. They brought her in this morning, to our clinic, because it was the closest facility and because her supervisor knew her medical history was on file there. I was on shift when they brought her in. I'm the one who admitted her. I'm the one who set up the monitoring equipment and attached the sensors and started the overnight log with her name at the top. I've been sitting at the monitoring station for 4 hours now, reading everything she posted, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with this information. Anne was discharged 2 days ago. I didn't know about any of this when I processed her paperwork. She seemed fine, tired, a little disoriented, the way people are after long sleep episodes. She signed her discharge forms and left. I don't know where Anne is now. I've been watching the overnight feed. She's breathing normally. Her brain activity is showing consistent REM patterns. Her eyes are moving under her eyelids. She's dreaming. About 40 minutes ago, she started talking in her sleep. I have it on the audio log. I've listened to it 3 times. She said she can see everything from here. Then she said, tell whoever's watching that the highway looks different when it's time. I don't know what that means. I don't know if I should post this or call someone or go home and pretend I didn't read any of this. I'm going to stay for the rest of the shift. I've worked days for 3 years and never once considered switching to nights. I don't know why I'm considering it now. Update 6, I wasn't going to post again. I told myself after the last update that I was going to step back, talk to HR, maybe take a few days off, process everything I'd read in this account like a rational person and find a rational explanation for all of it. I found something in the system tonight that made that impossible. She's been stable for 3 days, breathing normally, consistent REM activity, eyes moving. The attending physician is calling it idiopathic hypersomnia, pending further evaluation, which is the medical way of saying we don't know what's happening and we're not ready to admit that yet. I've been doing day shifts since they admitted her, showing up early, staying late, telling myself it's because I'm concerned about a colleague. Tonight, I stayed until 11 p.m. I don't entirely know why. Around 9 p.m., I started going through her file properly. Not just the current admission notes, but her full employment history, her personnel file, anything I had access to. I don't know what I was looking for. Something in the post she wrote made me feel like there was something I was supposed to find. I found it at 10:47 p.m. Buried in the system under a legacy patient ID that doesn't match our current format, the kind of ID the clinic used before they updated the database 8 years ago. There's an admission record. Her name, her date of birth. Her photo, younger, maybe mid-20s, but unmistakably her. Admitted 12 years ago for severe hypersomnia. The attending physician notes say patient presents with prolonged REM activity. No natural cycling toward wakefulness, vitals stable, same notes as now, word for word almost. The discharge notes say patient condition resolved. No follow-up recommended. She was here for 7 months. She has never mentioned this to anyone at the clinic as far as I can find. It's not in her employment application. It's not in any of the paperwork she filled out when she started working here. Either she doesn't know, or she knew exactly what this place was when she applied for the job. I sat with that for a long time. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I went back further. I searched the legacy system for every admission matching the same profile. Prolonged hypersomnia, stable vitals, extended REM activity, discharge noted as resolved. There are 19 of them going back to 1987. 19 people who came to this clinic, slept for months, woke up and left with a note in their file saying resolved, no follow-up recommended. I cross-referenced the names against current clinic staff. 4 of them work here, not her. 4 others, people I see every day. People who have worked here for years in various roles, day shifts, administration, one in facilities management. I don't know what to do with that. I printed the list and folded it and put it in my pocket, and I've been sitting in my car in the parking lot for an hour trying to decide if I'm gonna do anything with it or just go home and forget I ever read this account. But here's the thing I can't stop thinking about. The post she wrote about the gas station woman, the one who'd been through it before and was working nights at a gas station 2 blocks from the clinic, watching, waiting for the next person to come along. 4 of the 19 names are clinic staff. I've been counting the roles they're in: day shift monitoring, administration, facilities, and 1 night shift position that's been vacant for 3 weeks. The position she held before she was admitted. I don't know why I'm telling you this instead of going home. I don't know why I picked up a job listing on my way out tonight and put it in my bag. I don't know why the night differential suddenly seems worth it after 3 years of day shifts. I do know, actually. I think I've known since I read the first post. I just needed to find the files first. These stories don't have neat resolutions. They don't offer explanations. They simply present the facts as they were experienced and leave us to sit with the discomfort of not knowing. If there's a lesson here, maybe it's this. When you find a place that humans have abandoned, remember that we're not the only things that can occupy space. And some things don't need permits to be where they shouldn't be. Thank you for listening. If you have your own story of places where you weren't as alone as you thought, I'd invite you to share it. Sometimes the telling helps, sometimes it doesn't, but the stories deserve to be heard. Sleep well.